Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and I, of course, am surrounded by the best and brightest out there in the blogosphere. And thank you very much for joining this TriCast show here on this Future Friday at the end of the week, in which we take a look at science fiction and modern tabletop RPG gaming settings, and most assuredly, we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, and that is armchair transhumanism, especially with role-playing games related to such as Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, Altered Carbon, Eclipse Phase, and many more out there. The Expanse and whatnot. But to end our week talking about the hit streaming show WandaVision, I thought we would talk about hey there, Omen, and of course we have the best dead man is here with us, helping me moderate. Now, this week we're going to end on AI, sentience, and the continuation of consciousness. A little bit of a heady subject, but we're going to bring it around into what it means for role-playing games. But we have to have a little context. So, the very last episode of WandaVision, of course, spoiler alert, please, spoiler alert. There is a conversation. If you've seen the thumbnail, you would know which individuals had that conversation, and the term individuals is going to be up for debate. Oh, you're funny, Owen. What about 40K as Future Friday? Some would argue that 40K is the deep, dark armpit of the future. 40,000 years of war and carnage and obnoxiously evil or decadence in what it means to have an eternal war. So I'm going to say yes. I'm gonna absolutely positively say yes. I'm gonna have to dive down that 40K rabbit hole one of these days, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to survive it. Anyway, so our if for anyone who has followed the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you will understand that the vision, and as used in the movies and many times in the comic books, that the vision is equal parts warrior and philosopher. And if you pay attention to the various interactions the Vision has had, you'll see that he's a badass physically, but tends to supplement that with having some of the best, at least as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe goes, to have the best philosophical conversations with people that tend to make other people shut up. If you really think about it, he dropped the microphone on the Sokovia Accords, talking about the fact that the existence of the Avengers is causing enemies to accelerate their potential against them. Has a conversation with Wanda about grief and loss, and tells her, has one of the best written lines ever. I hope I don't butcher it. One of the best written lines ever, and that says that grief is love persevering. And mic drop, Wanda, at that point, Wanda's like, yeah, you're my man. Oh, hell yeah. Right. And lastly, when the Vision goes up against the Vision in the last episode, we have a conversation with the two of them. One Vision created out of the mind, made whole body and mind from the very grief and loss and desire of Wanda, and the other reconstructed from the destroyed, assembled body by the Sword organization. And they have this conversation about the ship of Theseus, and there's a thought experiment. And yes, we did talk about this a little earlier, but that thought experiment involves a ship sailed by the hero Theseus. So in short, it says, It is supposed that the famous ship sailed by the hero Theseus in a great battle was kept in a harbor as a museum piece. And as the years went by, some of the wooden parts began to rot and were replaced by new ones. Then, after a century or so, every part had been replaced. Now, I'll tell you, as a letter carrier in the United States, I used to drive an LLV. Now I've got a Mercedes Metris. It's much more modern, but the old LLV, literally called a long life vehicle. I don't know. It might have had 600,000, 700,000 miles on it or something, and except for the frame, the glass, I think, and most of the body parts, there was nothing. The the load floor in the back. Other than that, nearly every piece on that vehicle had been replaced multiple times. So the question it then is whether the restored ship is still the same object as the original. If it is, then suppose the removed pieces were stored in a warehouse, and after the century, technology was developed that cured their rot and enabled them to be reassembled into a ship. Is is this reconstructed ship the original ship? If it is, then what about the restored ship in the harbor still being the original ship as well? And mind you, we're not going to come up with any any answers to this because these philosophical questions were, of course, discovered back in ancient, talked about in ancient Greece and Rome, and even till modern day and cognitive sciences, they're still talking about it, but it is a fun subject to think about. Um, yeah, you're right there, Omen. Talk about 40K. It's one where the sun don't shine. 40K is set in the year 40,000 AD, and after about 13,000 years of galactic war, we are seeing the arrival of the Tyranids and the awakening of the uh, Necrontyr from their many millions of years sleep. Dead Man says glass would have been replaced many times as well. At me driving the vehicle, I've never had them replace like a broken window or glass, but glass does it yellows, it cracks, things of that nature. And so over time, though, the question remains that, like, for example, all of us adult humans, and I don't know the mathematical measurement of this. I suppose I could look it up. Um, None of us has the same are made up of the same cells that we were born with. Every cell in our body has been replaced. How long does every cell in body? All right, here we go. Okay. How long does it take for every cell in your body to be replaced? According to researchers, the body replaces itself with a largely new set of cells every 7 to 10 years, and some of our most important parts are revamped even more rapidly. I know certain things are done very, parts of our body are done very quickly. I think skin is probably fast on that replacement level because we're always slooping things off, whatnot. But the question would be, um, what about our thoughts, our memories, and that thing that intrinsically makes us us? What if you could collect all that stuff? If somebody was going along with a dustpan and collecting all of your bodily cells and cast off effluvia, could they reconstruct you over time? And if they did, would that other person be you? Now, many of us would say, well, no, it would just be you might be able to carve something or mold something out of clay that might look like me and seem like me, but it wouldn't be me. Yeah, like Omen says, although from a much darker perspective, if you revive the corpse of a dead loved one, is that still the same person? Exactly. Now, of course, today we don't have the ability to reconstruct cognitive thought, right? Like the brain, we may more recently, I think sooner than we think, we might be able to reconstruct a brain or even maybe repair pieces of a brain. but the action that goes on inside of that brain, and of course we get into more of a theological sense of a soul. If we could restart a brain or program something that acts like someone, or copy someone's brain, is that person really them, or is this just a super high fidelity, nearly impossible way for us to tell the difference between, say, a loved one that's passed away and bringing them back to air quotes life, but it's not really them, even though that thing thinks it's them. And this part of it I love, because in role playing games, because the one thing we need in role playing games is conflict. And while it's really cool to be a Billy Badass in role playing games, Shadowrunner, Cyberpunk, I've got my plugged in laser sighted rail gun, and I've got um, my armored outfit and a cyber arm and jacked up reflexes and all this kind of stuff. One of the things that we tend to forget as players and as game masters even, is that every part and parcel of high technology means, for the most part, somebody else is involved in it. And if somebody else is involved in it, there's going to be conflict involved. Okay, so going back to, follow me on this, follow me down this path here. When Wanda's vision talks with the pale vision, spectral vision. I'm not going to call him white vision. It does like the other day we were like, that sounds a little racial to me. I think it's hilarious, but anyway, spectral vision and Wanda's vision are talking to each other, trying to decipher, are either one of them the real vision, and they come to the conclusion in some ways that neither one of them are the real vision, yet both of them are. Okay, because one formed out of pure thought and magic, made whole, has the personality of the original vision that was awakened by the Mind Stone. The other one is the physical manifestation of the vision, and locked inside of it's the spectral vision are all of the memories, but none of the emotional context. And so Wanda's hex vision uses that power when he, by touch, unlocking the brains of the people that were trapped inside the hex, touches this spectral vision on the head, unlocks that vision's memories. Some were saying, "Oh, he downloaded it." No, the vision in the hex has no memories of his experiences in the Avengers, waking up. It never had those experiences. But the one that was the Hayward vision, I'm sorry, Hayward's vision had those memories. They were just locked away because, of course, Hayward and Sword wanted to use it as a defensive machine for the world, build a suit of armor around the world, the Ultron experiment, essentially, and unlocks it, and it's like, oh, I am the Vision, and then flies away. And in the comic books, this really did happen. Spectral Vision, old pale ghosty Vision, did have all the memories of the original Vision that were all complicated and convoluted in the comic book sphere, but had no emotional context. It was just a cold machine for at least temporarily, till they had another comic series and rebooted things and things like that. Deadman says the real Vision would be the Vision run by Ultron. Technically, yeah. Um, well, that would be because the Vision, which was Ultron's vision, technically is the culmination of what Ultron was trying to do in the first place. Which is, it, in a way, Ultron did win it to a certain extent, although Ultron didn't realize that Ultron winning would mean that Ultron would have to be destroyed by its own vision. But yeah, because Ultron was like, I'm going to construct a vibranium body, and it's going to be powered by a Mind Stone, and blah blah blah. And yeah, so technically, yeah, you are right. Now, what I love about this, um, the continuation of consciousness. We'll get back with sentience and the AI in a minute, but the continuation of consciousness is the idea of, like, the horror show that is the hidden body horror that is in Star Trek with the transporters, where some would say the transporters in Star Trek is constant suicide. That you go into the transport, the beam kills you, reassembles your atoms somewhere else, and this other thing that is not you, that thinks it's you, arrives on a planet somewhere and goes on an adventure with the red shirt, gets killed. People without red shirts get beamed back, who are then killed on the planetary surface, copied, reassembled inside of the ship, and then a thing that thinks it looks and acts like you is on the ship. But the reason why it is not considered that, and I'm sure the show has didn't intend for this to be the considered suicide in the first place, but it's the continuation of consciousness. Okay, so if you're looking out on the in the transporter deck, and then your consciousness never fades, it is a continuation of your thoughts from one place to another. We tend to consider that to be a continuation of consciousness. We, in reality, we do this every day when we fall asleep or take a nap or something like that. Every time we go to sleep and wake up, some would say our brains are rebooted, and there is cognitive thought that every time we wake up, we are not the same person that went to sleep. And we have no way of proving that one way or the other, but there are people who say, "Hey, this is the case." Uh, Whenever we suffer psychological traumas for any reason, some would say the same thing, that you're not the same person you were a week ago before that entity that was you suffered trauma. You suffered, much like a car getting into an accident or a fender bender or something like that. You're not the same thing. And then to recover from a traumatic incident, you're not you are not rebooted back to your old self. You're patchworked back to what you used to be. And so in a game like Altered Carbon or Eclipse Phase, when we've seen this story plenty of times, where hero gets killed, a backup of brain of that person gets rebooted. I'm thinking of there's a novel called Voice of the Whirlwind, where the main protagonist is awakened from a 15-year-old copy of himself, because he was a special agent and went out there and got killed, and then through a course of events gets woken up from a 15-year-old copy. And so many things have gone by. He's made friends and enemies and such, and he's got to navigate in this world and figure out, well, why did I die? Who killed me? And why is somebody trying to cover it up? And your old copy of yourself, is that you? Really you? You've lost, but you could make the argument that people in our lifetime now have had amnesia, and our own memories themselves fade over time. We are not as accurate in our memories and perceptions as we like to think we are. And so even us human beings are far more fallible in a perfect world than it would than if taking into account our environment and such. So even with continuation of consciousness, even we start to fade. On a daily basis, I'm alerted to things that I don't remember, and I I take pride in misremembering things on a constant basis that you guys remind me about. So yeah, I would say that today I'm probably not the same person I was yesterday. Dead Man says there are over 1 trillion stars in the galaxy. Each star has between 4 and 20 planets, but most of the Infinity Stones arrive on Earth. Listen, listen, that convenience. Wait, also, not just arrived on Earth, but arrived in a single point, a single needle in the haystack of needles that is the universe at the same time. Uh, and oh, and I often had that same conflict when it came to DC's version of the Green Lantern Corps. Like, why are all these humans in the Green Lantern Corps? Aren't there like a billion other alien races that are probably just as, if not more, experienced and worthy of the the Green Lantern ring. Like I've always in the olden days, back in my day in the 60s and 70s and 80s. I was born in 1970, so maybe not the 60s, but there were plenty of Green Lantern stories, and in the back of the Green Lantern comic book, they would do these like 2 or 3 page um, uh, perspectives of other aliens with their own Green Lantern ring. So it might be an alien on an aquatic world. It might be a plant-like alien. It might be, they would take these other different aliens. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I want to see that. I don't want to see a bunch of freaking humans, but, you have to have something relatable. And so, of course, there's going to have to be a human or some kind of humanoid or human-like being or something, much like Superman is a complete alien, but of course he has to look and biologically be exactly human, that kind of thing. Omen says that's also explored in Changeling: The Lost by White Wolf through the Fetch character. For those who don't know, well, I remember Changeling: The Dreaming, not Changeling: The Lost, but there is in the Changeling concept from White Wolf, that there are 2 worlds. There's our world and the Fey world, and there's a constant push and pull against going into the dream world but forgetting who you are in the real world today. And sometimes that's related to people who have like psychological issues or become homeless, or um, 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 artists that go off the deep end, or individuals that go into a catatonic state, and children are able to see fey creatures. When you get older and you become old, you forget the imaginative world. You forget that it was real. And then there's the other one where you start to go away from the fey world and you start going into the more real world. And then along with all of that, your memories start to fade and come back and things. And what I think is a great thing, we're turning this into pure tabletop. I'm not going to get too squirrely with this. Is that, imagine, I think a great overall setting mission would be player characters trying to recover memories and themselves and who they are. And you could easily translate that into character experience points. You could easily make that something where, let's say you have a player who always wants to play a different character all the time. They're constantly like, oh, I got another character concept. Easy to insert this into the game. Tesla Ranger's like, Earth is special that way. Oh, you know what? Tesla put in the Discord, Earth is a weirdness magnet. For those who don't know, who've ever played GURPS, generic universal role-playing system from Steve Jackson games, you can have a character feature called Weirdness Magnet. And I played a character with Weirdness Magnet, and the GM, my character kept getting visits and phone calls that were just strange. You know how you get a phone call and someone calls or texts you and it's like, and it's a wrong number, but then somebody else then calls you, think that's related to the person who made the wrong phone call to call you to get the message from the person. And it was a running gag, and it was hilarious. Everybody was in on it. It's pretty funny. Anyway, Earth is a weirdness magnet for cosmically significant events. Ancient interstellar evil sealed away, it's sealed on Earth. Futuristic star spanning alliance with hundreds of member races, the capital is Earth. Colonized solar system optional. Some alien or another, whether it's one ship or its entire race, crash lands with no possible means of control for where they end up. Earth. More specifically, either Central Park or the Bucatan. Yeah. Alien. Well, and not just Central Park. It's got to be New York City, Los Angeles. Third option, Chicago. You want to come from nowhere? It's Ohio. Anyway, aliens invading some random planet for no adequately explained reason? Earth. I look at you, District 9. Yeah, of course, maybe science fiction shows really do show aliens invading the planet Zog just as often as they do Earth. It's just that those shows are only aired on the planet Zog, where Earth is just one of the countless insignificant little blue planets. Yeah. That's why I love it when human beings. I love the idea of human beings being pulled into a galactic empire, and they're just like this little insignificant, like, I guess. All right, we'll give them an honorary invitation, I suppose. Or Tokyo. You know what? You're right, Dead Man. I apologize. Tokyo is often now. I would I would say, like, sometimes if you we'll pick other areas because we have to show like how badass something is by destroying it. So, or the UK for Doctor Who. Yep, UK for Doctor Who or Tokyo. Yeah. Now, also, what is it about aliens hovering over important historical sites? Right? Like Leaning Tower, Pisa, Eiffel Tower, Big Ben, Washington Monument. Right? Do you always have to have them because of course we recognize whether it's a building or historical location or a shape or something that we recognize. It always has to do that because we got to just because of course a laser beam has to come down and destroy it, or a big giant starship has to crash into it or something. Yep. And like Omen says, there's always the concept of author provincialism. And since we're all from Earth, we have to relate it. And listen, as creators, there is a reason why more often than not there's a character in a story who is Captain Obvious. The usually designed as comedy relief, who always says out loud the things that we as the viewer are saying. So that's why there's always like, it's on Earth, there's a human being. Why is there a sidekick following the hero? Because that person has to keep saying why are they here? Where are they coming from? Why are they green? Why are they shooting at it? Because you have to have there's a stand-in for us as the viewer, and sometimes they think we're a little stupid, so they have to put somebody stupid in the book or movie or TV show or something for us to follow. Yeah, or St. Louis in Defiance. Well, the Arch. I rest my case. Proved my point. St. Louis, yeah. Dead Man. If you find the image and put it in a Discord, that'll explain everything to Omen. Um, yeah, Oben says, as a side note, I find it hard to write about real world locations outside the Philippines unless it's completely fictional, such as a fabricated country. Listen, Omen, here, let me give you a suggestion on that. Make it up, because they do. most most stateside fictionalized things are filmed nowhere in the locations that they are. They're just made up, and they're usually described in broad strokes. Most California imagery and such is just broad stroked, made up, and filmed in like Vancouver or someplace like that. Atlanta is another one. Yeah, it's not. Yeah. New York isn't filmed in New York, and they just do a big broad. It looks like New York. Here's some images of things in New York. Anyway, back to consciousness. I did squirrel it myself. Back to the continuation of consciousness. Um, in science fiction, we often have our heroes, whether they undergo some kind of operation to get an upgrade, or their brain is being downloaded, or let's go cyberpunk or Shadowrun for a minute here. The characters are they're getting a cyber arm, or they're going to a black market doctor. Let's go with let's go with a let's go with 40K. You have people in cold storage before they arrive on another planet, and they're going to engage in a war or whatnot. And the thing that we tend to forget about is every time the player character is in their infant state, they are in their most vulnerable state. Of course, that's the downtime state of the game, right? That's where we as storytellers get to pull on that thread and take advantage of them. Now, I don't mean relax. I don't mean take advantage of them sexually. And I don't mean body horror them to death, like, you don't know if you've been probed. Nothing like that. But what I mean is, in altered carbon and eclipse phase, you can beam. It is all about cortical stacks and beaming your brain from one place to another. Why? Why wouldn't there be, whether it's insidious or not, or something? Why wouldn't there be somebody copying their brain or removing a section of their memories or um, uh, infiltrating the supposed continuation of consciousness as someone leaves a habitat around Neptune to beam their way back home to Mars? And when the PC goes into the chamber to get the uh, to have the, I don't know, the cord plugged into their temple, or the big giant needle shoved into the back of their head, and then their consciousness beamed, why wouldn't the authorities copy their brain? Or a criminal organization that makes sure they copy anyone and everyone that has some sort of importance. And firewall itself in eclipse phase, there's the hidden black ops organization known as Firewall that's out to protect the universe, the solar system rather, against the incursion of existential threats. Of course, Firewall is going to make copies of the main protagonists. That's a no-brainer right there, no matter what the PCs think. Even if a player character is like, oh, I didn't back up my brain, Firewall's like, remember that time when you wanted to get this other jacked up body and you wanted to be Billy Badass? Yeah, we kind of secretly copied what you were thinking. So if you want to come back from the dead, we can bring you back. Just don't get mad at us for doing that. Like that's of course that's going to be a thing. And the issue is, and the fun thing would be for a player character to realize that I'm not the original. I've never been the original. And they're like, nope, we've been sending out copies of you for years. As a matter of fact, we need you to investigate a squad that was sent out that got killed. And oh, by the way, don't be surprised when you see your dead body there. And yeah, can you recover the cortical stat? Because we need the memories that you never had, but we need the memories from you that went on this mission and failed. We're going to need you to do that. The other cool thing about the continuation of consciousness is that if you really wanted to do this and you have a number of players but they can't show up at the same time, you could run 2, 3, 4 different missions at the exact same time, vacillating between different players who can show up at different times for different reasons. So there's a mission to uncover, of course, a starship that's not it's sending out a beacon, but there's no life on board. Let's go in the ship. You go in the ship. Hey, we're going to meet next week. Unfortunately, players can't be there next week, but I still want to play my character, and we have new players. Can I play my same character? Like, yeah, because you're also on a mission after going through a wormhole to land on an alien planet. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Go ahead. And then, so now you're playing another character. And now you might say, well, how do you differentiate between getting experience points or their memories or whatnot? And the problem with that, I think, is the solution to that. Why can't a character have a memory of something that they've never been through? Why couldn't a character think not have a memory of something they actually did, even though other people around them are like, don't you remember when we went on this mission? And that player's like, I wasn't there for that. And they're like, yeah, you were. You were with the adventurer. Like, no, I wasn't. No, in reality, I had to work that time, that day. I wasn't at that game. And they're like, well, your character was there, so we remember you being there. Much like in real life, when someone has amnesia, other people see pictures of them and photographs of them and videos of them, and they're like, yeah, this was you. And the person in the hospital's like, I don't remember any of that. or amnesia on purpose. I was drinking so much, I don't remember any of that. And they're like, yeah, well, you did that. You stood up on a table. That's why you broke your hip. Like, I don't remember it. I just remember having fun. I don't remember any of it. But yeah, so a lot of antagonists could be part of player characters just from the simple fact of them going into cold storage to travel a long distance, or beam their brain, or simply going into some back alley black marketplace to get an upgrade to their cyber limbs or something. Now, when it comes to AI systems, AIs and such, most games, if I'm not mistaken, and yes, you can correct me because I'm sure I'm wrong with this, but our philosophical desire to discover whether an AI system is truly sentient or not really has nothing to do with the game system. Most game systems just go, listen, make up your character, and if you want the background or pick the character option that allows you to be an AI, fine, then you're just an AI. But the great thing about a player character that's like, oh, I'm not a human being, I'm actually made from an AI system and whatnot, is you get to play all around a lot with consciousness, time factors, emotional context to things. You know, in Blade Runner 2049, uh, a beautiful film, we get to see a character who is trying to balance his need to be a replicant, and spoiler alert, a replicant, and against, and as a replicant not supposed to have a strong emotional reaction against memories that he has about being a kid. And by the way, this character is starting to have a relationship with an off the shelf holographic woman, which is really kind of cool. A great pocket, great pocket NPC for this character to have. Side note, great GM storyline there to have a little thumb drive that you can plug in, and this person carries around their best friend, their loved one, and hoping to have a real relationship with this over the counter device. But anyway, the character has these intense memories of being a child and being on the run, and it's like, wait a minute, I'm a human being. I'm not a replicant, right? I can't be a replicant if I have these intense memories. Come to find out that those memories were implanted, but that doesn't make them any less real for this character. And so a player character could, as an AI even, could especially have these intense memories, but they belong to somebody else. And maybe that somebody else becomes the character's mission, maybe protecting someone or finding the person that these memories belong to, such as maybe the character was created by a scientist, and that scientist, using themselves as the guinea pig, use their own memories to give the AI some sort of foundation. And then now the player character is like, no, I'm going to protect my creator because they lived the life that I thought I had. Yeah. And Deadman says in Eclipse Phase, about 5% of infugees are AI source, some even being uplifted AIs. And what Deadman is specifically saying is that infugees, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, or if I could break that word apart, an info refugee is a person who's a digital refugee from the fall of Earth, and they've been beamed off of Earth, uploaded into some kind of data bank or something, probably downloaded into one or multiple cortical stacks, and 5% of those are AI sourced, and those AIs could come from anywhere from, I'm sure, from military sources, corporate sources, hacker sources, people who have, hey, family, let's beam off of Earth. And the kids are like, we're not going to leave our AI, our home AI behind, are we? And the family's like, no, they're part of our loved ones. Let's beam them up too. The differentiating what we consider today in our own life, the majority of us carry around our own AI. And why am I saying that we carry around our own AI? And it seems very personal. I challenge any of you who have a home computer, desktop, laptop, cell phone, and I dare any of you right now, just without thought, go to the reset button and reset all your stuff. Just hit the reset button back to back to its original settings. Just randomly do that. I dare you to do that. You're not going to. Literally, when people get drop their cell phone in a toilet or bust it up or something, they're like, mother, oh. And the stress that happens by having to take it back to the place to have everything downloaded off of it so we can get our AI, our cultivated, computerized lives that are separate from us, that are blended with us back to its original state, is very stressful. Very, very stressful. And so why wouldn't that be done in the future? So yeah, 5% of refugees are AI sourced. Yeah. I mean, I could see a soldier having an intense relationship with an AI system that was the Overwatch for their military group, their squad. I'm sure modified. Let's take, what's the movie? The movie Fury, World War II tank group. Anyway, Omen's like, I opened up the roll down menu. Yeah, right. You're not going to. Don't do it. Don't do it. I hear you, Ovid. Listen, we're already on the same spot. As a matter of fact, um, you guys are to me what I hope me and everyone else is to you guys. Like all of you are my external AI, even though you're real, because you are the external portion of my brain, even though you're not in my brain yet, but at some point probably. So yeah. Mufa's like, another reason I still use a flip phone. Hell yeah. They're like, I ain't going through that stress shit. Oh man. Yeah, I could take my flip phone and break it right now and keep on going. And me, nope. I'd be like, mother father. Oh man. Transcendence. Not the most exciting movie in the world there, Dead Man, but yes. But wow, that might be a excellent premise, terrible execution movie. What? Okay, okay. Transcendence 2014 with Johnny Depp. Uh, Take it easy, guys. A scientist's drive for artificial intelligence takes on dangerous implications when his own consciousness is uploaded into such a program. And that movie not only delves into a bit of the fear we would have of transcending ourselves. Like, the idea of transcending ourselves is one thing, seeing it happen in real time, becoming like hive minded and having people with nanotech systems in their body, increasing their strength and endurance, and not having they don't need sleep, and they can communicate unconsciously by very quickly and easily able to communicate with each other through like short band radio, and being able to recognize each other's uh, body language instantly and easily, like an instant empathy and stuff. It's scary to see people like, we are scared of the Stepford Wives idea, but that might be transcendence to some people. And while on the outside we don't want the board to, excuse me, from the outside we may not want the Borg to take us over. Being a Borg is pretty fun, probably. They're like, this sounds kind of cool. Now, having it done to you by force, that's a little bit taking away my rights. But having it done specifically, yeah. So AI systems could very easily, I think, we don't give it credit, but because we often think, well, it's programmed, it's an AI, it can't have emotions. But we don't know that a computer can't duplicate our emotional context when all it is just data. Now, a computer may not have the physical, um, the physicality involved in emotions, sweaty palms, increased heartbeat, the contraction and opening and closing, the dilating of the pupils, crying, twitching, um, getting feeling cold, or feeling warm and getting flustered and such. The physical parts of that, maybe not until a an AI system could live inside of a biological body that has those reactions. But maybe there is a way to copy the physical reactions, which I think is where BTL chips come from, better than life chips. Someone skydives for their first time and you want to experience that experience, you take the BTL chip, plug it into your head. Maybe you can feel what that person felt going through those experiences. Or maybe they leave themselves open enough for you to feel that their emotional experience does not translate to you, but you feel them wholeheartedly. And I bet for people who make better than life chips and experiences in maybe even AI systems, that they might become, in the science fiction future, they might become very common. But much like an artist, like a great actor, painter, sculptor, musician, dancer, maybe our interface with those things becomes so measured by fine lines that we hire specific people to experience things, because we can blend, our emotional experience allows us to blend with them better than other people. So much like today, the most of the world has a smartphone and has an audio visual device with a world spanning distance, but we don't the entire world isn't making movies and recording their life all the time. Only some people have basically an undefined charisma. Some people just, hey, let's be honest. Some people just look better than others. Some people are more approachable than others. Some people are better communicators, or maybe there are some people who just have interests that that are passionate about interests that other people find far more interesting than others. And so we do differentiate between, you know 50,000 people can visit the same historical site, but a really good photographer can capture that historical site in the best light, with the best time, or the best video, with the proper sound editing and such. And so maybe these people who record better than life chips, or an AI system that can just integrate with humanity, becomes that better thing, and maybe that becomes a player character. Why wouldn't now an antagonist go, ooh, player character? Now that's an AI we need to go after, because their human, their artificial human interface is the best. We can't tell the difference between them and a human, and that's rare. Most of the time we can tell. And so also a player character that is an AI. Of course, we have antagonists that want to arrest them, copy them, destroy them, put them on cold storage, uh, remove a piece of information that might be dangerous or legally belongs to someone else. Hell, you can even, there's a funny video, and I believe I even have it saved in the playlist for Eclipse Phase very early on. But there's a funny video with comedic person talking about transhumanism, where copyrighted books are now deleted from your brain because you didn't keep paying for the rights to have them. And so you could have a situation where players are like, I've never been here before, and the agency is like, you've been here before, but you didn't pay for the permission to remember the information that you visited here before in the first place, because they charge you for that. So beyond paying for things like air and water and space in in intergalactic space, maybe you might even have to pay for the memories of a place. Hey, you want to visit the pleasure planet, or the pleasure habitat? You better pay for it, because when you leave, you're not going to remember it. Yeah, you got to pay your monthly fee to keep those memories in your head. Otherwise, you got to, and that would be a perfect reason why people would go back to the pleasure dome, right? You go there, you have fun, you leave, you don't even remember what happened. Unless you do that on purpose because you drank your way through it. Omen says, like are savage and barbaric people who don't know what tabletop RPGs are for. Uh, are, for example, but we can forgive them for being ignorant too. They're human too. Those other people, we are so much better than those other people, aren't we? Oh, that's arrogant. Shit. Very easy to otherize people. That's something else as well. Just before we get out of here, that's something else that can happen when it comes to consciousness and the way we perceive things. That how easy it would be, and this was done in Black Mirror, where they took soldiers and they altered their perceptions of what something is, and a player character could be a Billy Badass, come to find out that they've been murdering and killing innocent people because, well, guess what? The real you is on ice. We just made a fake you because, you are a badass, but we needed you to do the job in the first place. So we made those people look like monsters, and you've been killing innocent people for us for quite a while. Now, don't be upset. We can delete that out of your brain too, but we didn't think you'd find this information out. And so player characters might have to go on a mission to unshackle the real them. Player characters may go on a mission to kill their real self because the modified artificial self is better. I bring to you both versions of Total Recall. In Total Recall, the protagonist is the antagonist. He was an asshole that was like, you know what, we need to put this rebellion down. I'm going to hide within this rebellious group. I'm going to become a revolutionary with them, and then I'm going to destroy them from the inside. Well, the new personality is like, I'm not a bad guy. They're right for doing it this way. So again, the player characters might be out there trying to kill themselves. As a matter of fact, a player character knows that they're an artificial AI based on the memories of a real person who's an asshole, who was them. And they're like, you know what? I need to kill myself. I need to kill every copy of myself because I'm pretty friggin' dangerous out there. And what a great in-world game reason for a player character to gain levels, gain abilities, because over time, the player character's down here, the antagonist, them, is up here, and every time they get closer and closer, the player is getting better and better by finding and absorbing bits and pieces of their real self while at the same time destroying the thing that they want to destroy, which is themselves. And I think that's great. That'd be awesome. I think the best way to do this as a surprise would be go to your players, in a chat room, or if you want to go old school, 3x5 card it, and get your players to come up with some of the most devious plans you can think of. If you were an evil person, what would you do in this world? Get it from 3, 4, 5 players. Get all that, and then mix it together so that that player might realize who it is or what they're going after, or they might not. So some of it would be a surprise by other people, but that would be cool too, to have like, oh man, you mean the actual bad guy is all of us combined together? As a matter of fact, that's an actual introductory adventure called Mindhunter in Eclipse Phase, where the player characters all in different bodies, different morphs, some biological, some artificial, some a mix between, called pods, and they all have different memories and different personalities. Come to find out, the adventure is that they are all fragments, they're fractals of the original individual who is trying to reconstitute its own personality back together again. But those personality chunks are the player characters that have escaped. And that is kind of cool. That's really cool. Lastly, all this stuff about when we talk about sentience and morality and what's real and what's not and all that kind of business can be very personal. And so whether your ethics runs towards the public, whether the ethics runs to your personal life. For example, we may say to everybody else, you know what, we really don't want people running around just copying their brain willy-nilly. But for me, maybe it works, but maybe I want to have the right to do that. And so player characters might be in a position where they are specifically like, well, in a bigger context, legally, we're not really supposed to do this, but my character is doing this thing and is running around and is trying to reconstitute themselves because maybe the authorities are like, you know what? This is people have been abusing this. We're going to have to shut down any and every extraneous brain out there. Or we've had the human AI war, and we've sent out agents. We have agents out there like Blade Runners who are basically putting a bullet through the proverbial brain of every rebel AI system. Good, bad, we don't care what you've done. We're just shutting every rogue AI system out there. We're shutting it all down, and we're starting from scratch. We as human beings can't control this crap. We're shutting it down, and the PC is like, ooh, I just found out I'm an AI. Wow. Ooh, ouch. It could be maybe the player characters are part of a freedom, a thing of freeing AI systems in the first place. You know, we've always the classic Skynet adventures and such. That's always a big thing about Skynet takes over and computer systems and blah blah blah. And maybe the players are like, you know what? Even though we technically are a group that's going out to kill them, we're secretly being like supported by them. Some in Eclipse Phase, some are even saying like maybe firewalls actually run by AIs. We don't know. Or maybe AIs are transcending human beings up to their level, and because of humanity not understanding how to, humans just can't comprehend what it means to transcend, but they're sending out agents, and humans are the agents themselves. And mathematically speaking, and you've heard me say this before, mathematically speaking, the further we get towards immortality, the greater chance we have of dying. Think about that for a moment. The longer our lifespan is, the greater chance we're going to bump up against something that will destroy us. And so maybe the AI systems are like, you know what? Yeah, we're probably going to die from heat death of the collapsing universe or expanding universe or something. So we need to do something about this. And since human beings think in short terms, we need to forcibly save them. And the player characters might be caught between a rock and a hard place. Like, I get what you're saying there, AI systems, and I get that you copied my brain from a real human being, but I kind of want my real human brain back. And yeah, no. Yeah, no. So anyway, yeah, a little complicated system here, but I think there's a way to make a bunch of stories here, whether they are fractal pieces of the characters themselves that are running rampant. Could you imagine like there's a crime lord in your story, come to find out that crime lord is really a chunk of one of the player characters' personalities who was like, I don't know how I got here, but I woke up here and I just made a life for myself. And that's just, this happens to be, and the players are like, oh, maybe I need to recruit myself for myself. My highest contact NPC is myself, who doesn't realize it's myself, but it is myself. And I need to befriend myself for myself, even though myself doesn't understand what's going on. And the crime lord's like, I'm not going with you. And the player character's like, but you are me. And they're like, yeah, well, if you knew it was me, you knew I wouldn't leave. And then the player's like, the crime lord's like, yeah, you make a point. I don't think I'll have to put a bullet in the back of your head, you know, because that's what I would do if I were you. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining me. I am DBJ. Thank you very much for being part of RPG with DBJ. Please like, share, subscribe, follow, comment. Heck, you could, if you really need to, go over to Drive Through RPG, check out Critical Hit Publishing, of which I'm a contributing writer, and know that in the future you'll see more things coming from me content-wise. And if you really, really want to support, please go over to Patreon or even Coffee, or drop in can support with super chats and all that kind of stuff. But I really don't support a lot of stuff. But I just thought I'd bring that up, guys. Anyway, have a great day, please. You guys know me. I gotta head off to work. So for you guys out there, yeah, let's get to work in those dice. Don't let those dice work you. Have a great one. I'll see you later. Bye. Thanks for watching.